You got no problem. You go to platform number 2, change at the bank. I hear you, go ahead.
Are you receiving my announcement on the platform? Because I have no idea up here.
I am receiving it over loud and clear.
You're the director. You're the director of the Northern Line.
Can you please take your finger?
I'm sorry, I know it is stress.
What sort of case is there for more investment in the Northern Line?
I think, as you've seen, an extremely powerful one.
At Embankment Station, it was 90 minutes before the service returned to normal. A defective conductor rail had caused electrical arcing, which in turn had caused a small track fire.
The problem was here at this ramp end.
That's a live rail.
Yeah.
Supported by pieces of wood, the live rail had worked loose. Sparks from the poor connection had set light to the supports. They were a temporary repair, but they'd been there for 6 months and had rotted through. Porcelain pots are the usual way of fastening live rails.
It's not a way I would have done it anyway, if it was down to me. It should be sitting on porcelain pots, because at least when it's sitting on porcelain pots and it does arc, there's nothing to catch fire.
Afterwards, we spoke to the emergency response unit on a disused platform. They told us the fact that the conductor rail's wooden supports had rotted through should have been picked up by a maintenance patrol.
Had there been regular patrols of the area and regular checks on the track's gauge, a problem like that wouldn't have happened.
You suggesting there aren't enough maintenance patrols?
There's not as many as there used to be.
Why is that?
Probably since the company plan came in a few years ago. And a lot of staff have been lost through natural wastage and stuff.
I'm happy about this because I don't agree with what he's saying. Which, you know...
At this point, a London Underground press officer accompanying us intervened. She was concerned at the engineer's suggestion that the repair had been below London Underground's normal safety standards.
I think we still do the same monitoring. It's done in a different way.
So what you're saying is that the repair that was done to it wasn't a public...
It's like nothing I've seen anyway. It was a bit...
You've never seen something like this?
No.
Really?
Never.
You're suggesting it's unsafe?
No, I wouldn't say it was unsafe. It would be unsafe if it got wet. And with the way these tunnels leak down here, well...
Tuesday ended after a catalogue of familiar problems.
Hello, NCC.
The NCC, or Network Control Centre, is the nerve centre for London Underground. Their modern monitoring system relays information about everything that goes wrong across the ageing network.
Train service on the Bakerloo line are currently being delayed because of a earlier signal system failure.
Victoria Line keep breaking their rails. Hello, Kath. We've still got delays for the Hammersmith and City, but it's escalated now into signals failing at Farringdon. Right then, bye. Yeah, I don't know why we keep giving the Victoria Line rails, they only go on breaking.
London Underground's fares are amongst the highest in the world, but with one of the lowest government subsidies, there's not enough money to prevent the system from becoming even more dilapidated than it is. Patch and mend is the way the tube keeps going, as their billboards now tell us. They can't guarantee long-term funding by borrowing like private industry. The Treasury won't let them. And because they compete with other demands on the public purse, money promised 1 year by the Treasury can be cut the next.
We need to be able to plan several years ahead. Really, we need to be able to plan 5 to 10 years ahead to see the work that needs to be done and then to program it and schedule it in the best way. At the moment, we have sort of stop-go investment. We get some money, and then suddenly we lose the money, and we have to make rapid changes the whole time, and that's very wasteful and doesn't make any sense.
The roughest ride in London is on the Metropolitan Line. Ron Bear is one of their drivers.
Everyone says it's the bumpiest ride in London, the Met Line. Is that right?
Which is a definite roller coaster, isn't it?
His train is 37 years old, though it looks brand new. It's been refurbished. The problem isn't the train, it's the track.
I was going to say, this is really bumpy.
Yep.
Why does it matter if it's bumpy? Does it really matter?
Well, it's
safe, isn't it?
Well, it's safe, yes, but the trouble is, it's just wear and tear. It's just a false economy. While it's bumping around, you're actually damaging the good bit of track and the good suspension that you've spent money on. So if you've got bad track that's throwing it around, you're just wasting the money. So the money that's been invested by the taxpayer is being wasted because they've actually cut and they're not reinvesting.
The Metropolitan Line is another victim of the Treasury's stop-go funding. This year, £36 million worth of investment has been cut from its combined budget with the Circle Line.
There are large sections, particularly of the track and the signalling system, where it would make much more sense to really do a proper job, replace the whole track, put in a new signalling system. We don't have the funds available for doing that, so in practice what we have to do is make sure that the existing system is sufficiently safe for everyone to travel on it.
So, in a sense, you're forced into a patch and mend culture.
Yes, we are, yes.
And how cost-effective is that?
No, it's not good either. I mean, it's a relatively expensive way of solving the problem.
When he was Shadow Transport Secretary, John Prescott said he was tired of what he called the Tories' make-do-and-mend approach to London Underground. The Tube's investment backlog now stands at £1.2 billion.
Are you going to give them that money from the public purse?
Well, £1.2 billion is an awful lot of money, and we can't simply adopt the old tradition of going along to the Treasury and say, listen, this is collapsing, why don't you give us the money to improve it? But there are other ways of advocating and finding finance for public sector industries.
Back at Victoria Station, it's the evening rush hour.
Right, what we've got here is a problem that is a perennial problem for Victoria, which is a group of tourists standing in the middle of the platform. Now, we've asked them to move down the platform.
They probably don't understand.
They don't understand. So we've now got a blockage on the platform. If you look here, the platform is relatively clear. And behind this blockage, we've got a large number of people building up. The Underground plays such a crucial role in London's prosperity that if we don't upgrade the Underground and make it a railway that we can be proud of, I think London's performance as a world-class city will suffer. And the government has to make a choice. Do we want to be a world-class city or do we want to be a second-class city?
This is a message from the Network Control Centre. Train services on the Bakerloo line are being delayed because of an earlier signal problem at Paddington.
Thursday morning starts with the usual crop of problems.
Can you please attend Knightsbridge Underground Station, please?
Elsewhere in central London, hundreds of passengers have been stuck in tunnels.
We had a signal failure at Piccadilly Circus, which meant that we had two trains stuck, one outside Piccadilly Circus, one outside Oxford Circus, for about half an hour.
Under the last government, the Treasury wouldn't allow London Underground to borrow money for investment. They said if they wanted to build a modern metro, they'd have to do it in partnership with private industry. And for the last 4 years, that's what they've been trying to do. Here at the Northern Line's depot in Golders Green, GEC Alstom have teamed up with London Underground to replace the oldest trains on the network. GEC have agreed to build nearly 100 new trains and operate them for up to 36 years. The Northern Line's manager hopes the new trains will rid it of its reputation as the misery line when the first one enters service in the autumn.
But the customers will see a significant difference when we get these new trains in. The old trains account for over half of our problems at the moment, and that's as far as stopping the train service goes. But in addition to that, I mean, as you can tell, the old trains are not a very comfortable environment to be in.
The package will cost London Underground £400 million. The Treasury like it because it's GEC, not London Underground, who've had to borrow the money. Instead, they'll repay GEC in yearly instalments. This private-public partnership is known as a Private Finance Initiative, or PFI. But PFI isn't without its problems.
They cost a lot of money, they take a long time to plan,
It was nearly 4 years before London Underground took delivery of the first train, and even then it was a year late. And so far they haven't found a company who's prepared to put up the £100 million needed to replace their old signalling in time for the new trains.
With rolling stock, it is conceivable that the supplier could find other people to use the rolling stock when the deal comes to the end of its life. With signalling, it is so bespoke, so much tailored to your individual needs that it is difficult to see how another supplier, another operator would be using it.
The Northern Line's ancient signalling accounts for half their delays. To get the best out of the replacements for these old trains, new signalling should have been installed first. So PFI can't be relied on to deliver new investment in the right order, which doesn't make it very cost-effective. But there is one consolation. When the new trains are delayed by old signals, at least the passengers will be delayed in comfort. The biggest risk for private industry would be to finance the rebuilding of London Underground's crumbling infrastructure, the tunnels, the embankments and the tracks. No one knows for sure how many hundreds of millions is needed to put all this right, especially the tunnels. On the bed of the Thames, Operation Hard Hat is preventing the Northern and Bakerloo lines from flooding. They're being encased in huge concrete boxes. Engineers only discovered there was a risk of flooding when they opened up the lining of the tunnels and found the original cast iron rings were defective.
Can you see what you're doing down there?
No, not at all.
How are you going to do this? How are you going to do your work then?
It's all done by touch.
Really?
Pitch black.
Hard Hat alone is costing London Underground £40 million, 10% of their entire capital budget this year, though passengers won't see the benefit. The new Transport Minister for London, Glenda Jackson, says she believes private companies would be willing to stump up the money for such projects. But so far, London Underground have yet to find one that's ready to take the plunge.
Do you think the government's put too much faith in PFI to solve your investment problems?
I think it has limitations, and I think we should recognise those limitations.
So, in other words, the government are going to have to come up with another solution to solve your funding crisis.
I don't believe we can solve all our problems with PFI. I think we have to look at a mixture of different methods of solving the problem.
So when Glenda Jackson says that that's the solution for your crumbling tunnels, ageing signalling and collapsed embankments, she's not living in the real world.
But Glenda Jackson can rest assured that we will do our best to look at those projects and to try and bring them forward. But realistically, I don't think they will solve all the problems.